Everyone, welcome to this lecture. So in this lecture we are going to discuss regarding the next topic of Palo Alto firewall, that is called as application ID, also known as app ID. So as we know that Palo Alto firewalls brings us in the table with the multiple features. One of the feature is content ID, which you have discussed so far. Next is your application ID, also called as app ID, and the third one is being user ID. So we've discussed content ID with various content ID based profiles already, and next let's say we'll discuss regarding the application ID now. Okay, so regarding the application ID, as we all know that my Palo Alto firewall will be doing the filtering of the traffic based on applications rather using the normal IP addresses or port numbers, right? So basically application ID, also known as app ID, app ID, so it is a technology which will identify the applications that is traversing the network. So I can say it's a technology that identifies the applications traversing the network, and Palo Alto firewall can understand that with regardless of any TCP/UDP port numbers or protocols or encryption, etc. right? So the idea is it will allow the Palo Alto firewall to enforce your security policies based on applications rather than just ports or IP addresses, right? So now how this feature works, right? So first of all, this particular feature, so I can say how app ID works. So first of all, I can differentiate this or explain that with three different terms. First one being your traffic classification. Traffic classification, where the firewall is going to inspect your network traffic to identify the applications using multiple techniques, right? One of the technique is your signatures of that particular application. Second policy would be to work with this policy enforcement, so where you define the security rules which can be created based on the classified application, or we can say recognized applications. And number three will be real-time updates, right, which means that the Palo Alto networks continuously updates the app ID databases to detect any new applications. Okay, so there are multiple places where you can do that. So first of all, for example, if this user is trying to browse to any URL, so let's say the user is sending a traffic through the Palo Alto firewall and the traffic is leading to the outside world, and this traffic is destined for certain URLs. Let's say this traffic is destined for facebook.com or might be instagram.com. so Palo Alto firewall will have the ability to identify the application rather than the port numbers or protocol that this traffic is using, right? So to understand that, you can go to the Palo Alto firewall, you can go to the monitor tab, and you can look into the traffic logs. So under here you have got this application column. So right here you have got this application column, and understand which application is currently matching this particular log. So what applications are getting allowed or which applications are getting denied, etc., etc., right? That is one thing. Second thing, in the Palo Alto Firewall CLI, you can also define those respective commands to check. So let's log in, and you can verify that using the CLI commands as well. So first command will be show session all, right? So let's say I send some traffic, so from my Windows client VM, let me log in, just give it a second. And if I look for IP config, I can see the IP is 10.1.1.10, and if I can reach to 8888, so I have got a security policy which allows this traffic. So if I look into the PA firewall under the policy and the security policy, it's allowing the traffic from trust to untrust, and here I have allowed the traffic for any applications, right? So that is the reason any applications will be allowed now. So let's say if I go to the Windows VM, the Windows client PC, and from there if I try to send some traffic to, let us say, Facebook or Twitter or Gmail, let's see if it is getting allowed or not. Just give it a second. In the meantime, you can type some CLI commands to check that. Before the CLI commands, as I've told you, you can always navigate to this monitor section, and then you can look for the traffic logs, and you should look under the application column to check which applications are getting allowed or denied. Now the respective CLI commands, you can type it as show session all. That is one command. Another command you can type is show running application. So these two commands you can take as a administrator to check which applications is getting allowed, which applications are allowed in the session, etc., etc. So now from this client PC, if I try to reach, let us say, Facebook, or from this client PC I'm trying to reach to Gmail, okay, I'm getting some privacy error for this. That's okay. Let us say I go to bing.com. Just a certificate authority, which is showing as invalid. I have to actually import the certificate here, so that's the catch. Okay, so let's do it from the WinServer PC. Okay, so over that E0 interface, because it is just showing the certificate which is not imported here for the Palo Alto Firewall. So just give me a second. Let me start this WinServer. Alright, so let it get started. So I'll show it to you. Hold on for that. So now the point is, you'll be applying this commands to check for the applications that is you're trying to access, right? Now, as I've told you, this app ID feature is a signature based detection technology. So this app ID feature is a signature based detection technology that will classify your network traffic. So that classifies the network traffic based on application rather than your traditional uh, traditional uh, port based filtering. Okay, so the idea is, it will enable granular control over which applications are allowed or denied. So if you as administrator can take very granular policies for that, and it will definitely improve the security posture by preventing any evasive or any malicious applications from bypassing your security policies, right? So how does this detection mechanisms work? So you can say that first of all, this Palo Alto firewall can detect the applications, whether this is the right applications or not, based on its application signatures, right? So it is a predefined patterns. Every applications will have signatures which will have a predefined patterns in the traffic. So in the traffic that matches known applications. Okay, that's the first thing. Second point is protocol decoding, which means that the Palo Alto firewall can analyze various protocols, and can understand how they behave, right? Can understand how they behave. For example, it can understand the signatures and the behavior for HTTP, SSL protocols or SSH protocols, etc., right? Third thing is it can also understand the heuristics and the behavioral analysis. So it will examine the application behavior, to distinguish between any legitimate application and malicious application. So distinguish between legitimate and malicious apps, and also SSL decryption. That's important, right? So SSL decryption, so the idea is it will inspect encrypted traffic if decryption policies are enabled. Okay, all right. So to configure that, you can look into multiple areas. So first of all, let's do one thing. Let's send the traffic via E00 interface from that Win server. 1 second for that. Okay, so let it load the VM. If I look for the IP address over here, IP config, I have an IP which is given as in Ethernet 0, which is 10.1.1.16. So if I try to do a ping to 8.8.8.8 space -t, so my pings are working fine. And if I look into the Palo Alto firewall, if I look into the monitor tab under traffic, and if I look for so I can see, okay, so it is taking time, so might be the traffic is leading via a different interface. So let me shut down this E1 interface and send the traffic over E0 itself. Okay, so give me a second for doing that. So I have deleted this E1 link that goes to the management network. The traffic will be there only with E0 interface, as you can see. Alright, so just give it a sec for it to load. In the meantime, we can do what we can go to the Palo Alto firewall and look for the place where we can go ahead and look for the multiple applications. So first of all, under objects, you have got these three places. On the left we have application, then application groups, and application filters. We'll discuss regarding application groups and filters down the line. And also you can see application services, service groups, etc, etc. So yeah, so applications, you can click, so you can see that on the right hand side that this particular PanDB, it is right now having 5049 matching applications. All right, ensure one thing over here, that your when you click on device and when you go to your dynamic updates, so make sure dynamic updates tab is selected and you have got the latest one, which is been installed and downloaded. So for all the applications and threads, you can see that I have did a check now earlier, so I can see that I have got certain updates for my applications and threads, for my antivirus version, for my Google Protect versions, etc. So let's say I have to download the latest one, right, and I have to install it, so that the latest applications and threads are available to me in the PanDB. So let it get downloaded. Okay, in the meantime, let's close it. So what will happen is, once it is downloaded, so you can see there is a tick mark which will appear here as it is downloaded, and you can install it down the line. So to configure any application ID based policies, what you can do is you can go to policy, then you can go to the security policy, and let's say you want to write some application based security policy over here. Let's say I create one application policy specifically for, let us say, I deny facebook.com. so how do I do that? Let's say this is block facebook.com. In that case, source zone is my trust zone, source address is my LAN address, which is 10.110/24 subnet. The user and the source device could be anybody. Destination is my untrust zone, destination address is any destination device. Now in the application, you can, instead of any, you can just add an application. So click on add, and you can see there are multiple applications which you can call. You can create an application filter, application groups, which we'll discuss later. So let's say you can filter based on Facebook. So if you want to block entire Facebook application, so you can actually do that by clicking on this application name as Facebook, and these are the sub applications of Facebook. So if you want to block certain granular feature of Facebook, you can do that. So let's see, if I click on application, I don't have any dependencies as of now, but yeah, so dependencies are listed over here, so you can call those dependencies. That means if you want to use this application called as Facebook, so this Facebook application depends on certain other application categories and types as well, which you can see, and you can click on add to current rule, so those will be applicable here as well, right? So this is all these applications are available. Service or URL category, keep it default port numbers for those selected applications. Action, say it is deny, right? So I can say deny. I'm not giving any profile for this, right? I can log it session end and click on OK, and this should be falling in the first line of my security policy. That is what I need. Just give it a second. So when you look for this blockfb.com, this rule appears in my in my second list. So I need to actually, because it's a deny policy, I should be making it in the top list. So I can say I can move this particular policy to up, the first sequence number, all right, and then I can click on commit. Let's commit all the changes. Alright, in the meantime, you can look back that, okay, if this Win server wants to reach to any URL, so this facebook.com was getting denied because of that content ID, and we have a security profile for URL filtering for social networking. That is the reason it was getting blocked earlier. So let's say we go to and the command prompt and say ping to 888. The ping traffic is working fine. Yeah, because ping is allowed, those things are fine. So my facebook.com should be blocked based on the first rule, right? So it should not match based on any port numbers, rather it should match based on the application that is called as Facebook and the dependencies of it. So let's wait for the commit process to complete successfully, and we'll test it out. So you can check the configuration is committed successfully now. So let's wait for this to get over. Yeah, so now you can go to the Win server VM, and from there my ping should work fine. It is. And if I want to reach facebook.com, it says the site can't be reached because it is getting blocked, right? We can use a incognito window as well and try to reach Facebook. It says it is getting blocked, right? Okay, so if I look into the PA firewall, and if I look into the monitor tab and in the traffic logs, so I can say that for SSL, this was actually reset. So you can see this blockfb.com rule was matched, right? So you can see that under the rule the application was classified and it is matched. So my SSL decryption took place, right? And yeah, so it was set as reset for both. Okay, all right, so this is working out. Okay, so it is matching. So similarly, if you want to call certain applications in your rules, this is the way you should do that. Now likewise, you can see under your device, when you click on dynamic updates, you can see that the latest applications and threats versions are downloaded, and you can install this. So click on continue installation. So make sure that this particular latest application and threat versions are updated over here, and then you can click on objects, and in the objects you can select applications over here, right, and check for the latest and greatest application which has been classified. Okay, so yeah, let the latest one gets installed, let it happen, and you can see currently we have got 5075 matching applications in this particular database, and you can see those applications are categorized into different categories like business systems, collaboration, general internet, media, networking, SaaS applications, and unknown applications. So these are the various numbers under those respective categories. Combining those numbers, it gives you this value. And those applications are also categorized into several subcategories, right? So you've got several subcategories as listed here that you can see, and also the risk category applications. So how many applications are categorized in lower risk and how many applications are categorized in higher risk. So higher numbers represent higher risk category versus lower numbers representing lower risk categories. And also you can see the applications are also tagged by various tagged values like DLP, application exclusion, editing applications, e-learning applications, so on and so forth. And likewise certain applications are categorized based on characteristics as well. Now if you want, you can select on any of the application. For example, let's say I select on general internet, right? And these are my different general internet based applications, and you can see the subcategory. So I've got 209 applications under file sharing category and 176 under internet utility. So if I select internet utility, so I can see, I've got certain applications under the risk categories as well, the different tags which I can see here, different characteristics I can see here, right? So for example, let's say these are my different applications that has been listed, right? So it's just page 1 out of 5. Okay, so I can actually use that to go to the other pages. Yeah, so for example, let's say if I want to see for an application which is ICAP, right? ICAP, which is general internet application. If I select this application called as ICAP, and I'll get the details about this application and its features right over here. Sometimes it make bit of time for it to load, because in the back end also my applications are getting installed, the latest versions of the applications are getting updated in the database of this firewall. That could be the reason as well why it is little responding slow to you. Alright, so you can see the application name has been ICAP, which is the port that it is using. It is using TCP port, plus also it can use dynamic port numbers as well. Now if you deny this particular application, what is the default deny action it will take? It will drop and send reset messages. And you can also read about this application from this Wikipedia, Google or Yahoo pages, and you can see the characteristics of these applications as classified. You can see the risk category, which is a lower risk category application. You can see the description of this particular ICAP application. So it's a lightweight HTTP based protocol defined in such certain RFC, designed to offload specific contents to dedicated servers, thereby freeing up resources and standardizing the way in which features are implemented. And also you can see it's TCP session timeouts, right? Likewise, so I think it's getting clear. So similarly, you can look for any applications of your choice, right? So let's say clear the filters. Let us say look for networking application. I can see there are so many networking applications, categories given to me, like SNMP, JNAV application, right? Azure applications, etc., etc. So let's say Aruba applications, you can see AWS IoT, whatnot, right? BGP was right here. I saw you have EIGRP application, right? So let's say if I look for this application called as let's say I search for an application called as BGP. So it says that, hey, it's part of the category of networking, subcategory of routing, risk category of TU, no tag. It's widely used. That's the application name. You can see that, and you can also look for its description. So it uses both TCP and UDP port 179. Any dependencies, because this application might depend on other application as well. Yeah, you can see if it has got some vulnerabilities or not. Yes, it is widely used. The risk category, the descriptions of it. If you want to edit the tag of it, you can actually do that based on your choice, right? Okay, so I hope this particular part is clear. Similarly, if you want to add any custom application of your choice, you can do that from here, right? And also you can type in Google this thing called as Applipedia, right? Applipedia of Palo Alto. So it's Palo Alto Networks Applipedia. So you can also look for that, which will have the similar outlook like the one that you are seeing over in the Palo Alto dashboard itself, right? So let's close it. So similarly, any application, let's say you want to block or deny, and let us say you want to know about this particular application category, its subcategory, its risk value, and to which characteristics category it belongs, etc., etc. So you can actually search for that application right here, and you can look for it, right? So for example, under media, if I want to look for let us say I want to search for this application called as Facebook, right? So what happens? So it says that, hey, Facebook is part of category of media, subcategory of audio, streaming, gaming, photo, video, technology, characteristic. These categories are listed here, right? So if I look for, similar ones, so I've got Instagram, base, photo bucket, etc., etc., right? So it shows to me all those details, right? So you can look for Applipedia as well, and look for its details as well from here. Okay, and likewise, if you want to add any application, any custom application of your choice into the PanDB, you can do that. So click on add, and you can define the application name, give a description, define the category, to which category this application belongs, to which subcategory technology it belongs, and also define the characteristics and click on OK. You can also define the TCP port numbers, or might be which layer 4 protocol and port number it uses, right? The timeout values, etc., etc. You can add the signature details about these applications if you have it. So yeah, you can define an application inside the local PanDB OS as well. All right, so I hope you understand regarding this app ID concept. So as I was telling you, so you can type this particular commands called as show session all, right? And to show session all is one command, right? So to see which applications are currently active in which session. And next is show running application. So it depends upon show running application. Statistics, you can give that. Okay, so you can see which applications are currently running and what are these statistics, current statistics for those applications that is passing through the Palo Alto firewall, right? And also you can look for a particular application of your choice like that. So show application, and then you can define the application name, right? So you can define the application name of your choice. Okay, all right, so how to create an application ID in your security policy as well. All right, so yeah, this is what I want to explain you as of now. In the upcoming section, we'll discuss few more advanced topic of your application ID. So thank you for joining. Please practice the same. I'll see you in the next video.